Assalamualaikum everybody, this is my 88 algorithm video. In this task that I have gotten from LeetCode, we need to find the longest common prefix. So we are given a list of strings. In example 1, the list contains flower, flow and flight. So the common prefix in these three strings is FL. FL in flower, FL in flow and FL in flight. But in the second example of dog, race car and car, there is no common prefix. So first let me explain to you how the pseudocode would work. Now I will be explaining to you the pseudocode. I have modified the string list. In the string list, the strings are advanced, adventure, adorable and adrenaline. So I would be making a variable of common prefix. And I would take initially the common prefix as advanced. So I would do string list and would use the 0 index. So by using the 0 index for the string list, I would get advanced. I would be using nested for loops because we need to get the individual characters of the strings. For example, if we don't use the nested for loop, then in the outer for loop we would only get advanced, adventure, adorable and adrenaline. So to get the inner characters, inner letters of the strings, for example A, D, V, E, N, we need to make a nested for loop. So in the outer for loop we would do for I in range 1 till len of string list. Now why do we start with 1 index? Because we have already chosen advanced in our common prefix. So we need to compare adventure with advanced to get the common prefixes. So that's why we start from 1 index, right? In the outer for loop, we would initialize a variable of new prefix. And I would make it a blank string. Then I would be making a counter and I would name it as inner count. And I would give it a value of -1. Then we get to the inner for loop. For j in string list I. So what happens here? In the outer for loop we get adventure, and in the inner loop, in the first iteration we get A. In the second iteration we get D, in the third iteration we get V, in the fourth iteration of the inner for loop we get E, and so on and so forth. So we are getting the individual characters by using the nested for loops, right? Now in the inner for loop I would be incrementing the inner count by 1. The inner count would be used for indexing +1. Now I would be putting a condition if inner count is less than len of common prefix. Now let me explain why I have put this condition. So our common prefix initially is advanced. It is advanced because we have initialized the advanced as our common prefix. The length of common prefix is is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is 7. Now we would be comparing adventure with advance. So the string we get from the first index is adventure, and the new prefix would be, if we compare advance with adventure in the first iteration, A is common, so the new prefix is A, right? And the inner count at this stage is 0. Now when the inner count, when it is incremented by 1, it becomes 1. The common prefix, it's advanced, its length is 7. Now we would be comparing D. Does D exist in D advanced? Yes. So the new prefix would become as AD. In the next inner count, advanced, the length is 7. Adventure, we would be comparing V with V, so it is also common, so the new prefix would become ADV. Now in the third inner count, advance, 7 is the length of advance. Adventure, so E is not equivalent to A of advance, so this stops here. This doesn't go any further, and inner count again becomes 0. Right? So the new common prefix would be ADV. Its length is 3, and the next string that would be comparing is adorable. Right? Now we compare A with A. It is common, so the new prefix would become A. The inner count would become now 1. So ADV, the length is 3. Now adorable. The next character to be compared is D, and D is also common, so AD becomes a new prefix. Then inner count becomes 2. ADV, the length is 3. Adorable. O is not equivalent to V, so this stops right here. Inner count becomes again 0, and the new common prefix would become AD. So the length of the common prefix is now 2. Now we would be comparing adrenaline. So A is common in here, so the new prefix would become A. In the next inner count, AD, the length is 2. We would be comparing D with D, it is also common, so AD would become the new prefix. In the next inner count, AD, the length is 2. However, we should take note that we can't compare R with nothing, because this is finished. We have already compared D with D in this inner count. So in the next count, we can't compare R with nothing. So that is why we have put the condition that the inner count must less be the length of the common prefix. So the length of the common prefix is 2, and the inner count has also becomes 2. This has become equal, right? So the condition must stop here. It should not go any further. That is why we have put this condition of if inner count is less than common prefix. Because if we don't put this in this condition, it would give us an index error. I hope I have made this very clear to you. Now, once we have put this condition, now we would be doing if j is equal to common prefix inner count. J gives us the individual characters that we get from I loop, right? So for example, in I, in the outer loop, we get adventure, and J would give us the individual character, for example, A, D, V, E, N, as explained. And if these individual characters is equivalent to the letters of in the common prefix, for example, A is equivalent to A, D is equivalent to D, V is equivalent to V, but E is not equivalent to A. So if the individual characters of J is equivalent to the individual characters of the common prefix, then we would do new prefix is equal to new prefix plus J. J is the individual characters of adventure and adorable and adrenaline and so on and so forth. Then, however, if the J is not equivalent to the common prefix inner count would be used for indexing. So if, for example, E is not equivalent to A here, so we would break out of the for loop. Once we break out of the for loop, once we come out of the inner for loop, we need to make common prefix as a blank string again, because initially when we started this problem, the common prefix was advanced. Now If we are to find the common prefix, we need to remove advance as the common prefix, because otherwise it would have been added. It would be advance and then we would get ADV again. So we don't want this advance ADV, no. So once we come out of the for loop, inner for loop, we need to make the common prefix as blank again, and then common prefix is equal to common prefix, which is blank here, it is blank here, plus new prefix. New prefix for adventure is ADV. So blank string plus ADV, our new common prefix would be ADV, right? And once all this is completed, we would do print common prefix, and our answer would be AD. Now let's make the code. Okay, now I would be making the code. So we have the string list, and in the list we have the strings advanced, adventure, adorable, and adrenaline. I would be making the variable of common prefix, and I would initialize it as advanced. We would do this by string list, and I would give it a index of 0. Then the for loop, outer for loop, for I in range 1 till len of string list, we would be starting from adventure. The current prefix is equal to a blank string, and the inner count is -1. Then we would go to the inner for loop to get the individual characters of the string. For j in string index I, we would be incrementing the inner count by 1. String list. Then we would put the condition if inner count is less than the len of common prefix. If this condition is true, we would check if j, which is the individual character, is it equivalent to the common prefix inner count. And if it is true, we would add that individual character to the current prefix. Current prefix equal to current prefix plus j. And if it is not so, then we would break out of the for loop, inner for loop. Now once the inner for loop is completed, we would initialize the common prefix as a blank string, and we would add the current prefix to the common prefix. Common prefix equal to common prefix plus current prefix, and then at the end of the code we would print the common prefix. And now as I click play, so AD is our common prefix. Now if I use the example of flower, flow and flight, flower, flow and flight, we can see the common prefix would be FL. If we are to compare flow with flower, initially flow would be the current prefix that is common, but if we compare flow with flight, so we would get only FL, because FL is common between flight and flow, FL and FL. So our answer would be FL, and our result is FL as shown here. And if we are to do dog, race car and car, there is no common prefix, so it would be empty. Dog, race car and car. I would be putting a condition if common prefix is nothing, it is a blank string, we print no common prefix. Else print common prefix. Sorry, it should be double equivalent. So since there is no common prefix in this list, so we get no common prefix as a result. I hope you like my video. Please share, like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.